Here we go. Welcome back to Nick Lenz's Comic Corner, classic, lesser known classic. Episode number 3203, Doubleshot number 3097. Got a Marvel DC trade for this time. First up we have is All-Star West Series featuring Jonah Hex. I'm covering up basically the image because there's a reason why, what goes on here. Collecting issues 17 and 21 of the All-Star Western Volume 3. Written by Justin Gray and Jim Palmiotti. Art by Moritz and Johnson. Art for the cover right here. So basically, by the way, there's a feature in here featuring Stormwatch, which the star of this feature is Dr. 13. Well, the ancestor of the one who appears in the Vince Ranger book. Yes, because in pre-Flashpoint there was only one Dr. 13 and his daughter. Here, there apparently is multiple Dr. 13. So we have the sort of Destro Age thing. And the story is called Standing at Death's Doorstep. Basically, a bunch of dead bodies. There's also Wayne Casino here. And get this. So, we have Vandal Savage appearing here, which, of course, you have basically Alan Wayne. Alan Wayne is, I believe, like Bruce Wayne's great-great-grandfather. Vandal Savage being here in Gotham City this period of time is fine. I don't have an issue with it at all. Give it back, he's immortal, so it's perfectly fine. Yep. And of course, Hex calls him a cheater. And of course, you have some stuff like, damn, the mayor refuses to help. I'll pay anything to have bear back. Yes. So basically, it's like, yeah, kidnapping a woman, though, of course, basically, Vandal Savage being mad. It is pretty much basically the premise of the first couple issues in here. Like, 2 or 3 issues. Basically, I think this one becomes also somewhat important to the Wayne family, and supposedly, Vandal Savage just falls down a hole, and he disappears for a little bit. And then we cut to Slaughter's Swamp, which, yeah, this is where they bury a bunch of dead bodies. Supposedly, this is where they buried Vandal Savage, but Slaughter's Swamp is famously the swamp that birthed Salma Grundy. Here's like trenches, and of course Alan Wayne basically is asking about Jonah Hex, and Jonah Hex leaves town. Yep, after being in town for 18 issues, he leaves town. Yep. So then the very next issue, Hex is back out in the West, where he runs into Booster Gold. Okay, so there is an explanation of why the heck he's here. Like, how the hell is this possible? Yeah, he's a time traveler, but what happened? Well, after the events of the Justice International Annual, which of course he disbanded at that point, yeah, his time travel device was damaged. So he ended up in the Old West to become basically a sheriff. And there's a reason why he's here. Because we're going to do time travel stuff. Hex himself, not the first time he's dealt with time travel, but I think he finds more of a headache. They just shot him, and of course, the story is called Searching for Gold. Hex is still wearing his Confederate uniform, which Booster does not question, like, it's like, name's Jonah Hex. Why do I know the name? Couldn't say. What's your name, Sheriff? Booster Gold. Why is one panning for gold with 3 dead men just lying there who are wanted? By buzzers of reckon. I reckon. Yeah. The thing with, I appreciate the fact that Hex basically still has a bit of a southern accent, despite the fact he's in the West. So he goes to town, there's some killing happening here, not as much before. There's something with basically a machine gun, which I've heard these things have a tendency to overheat. Yep. And that's the reason why these never used until after the American Civil War. So of course there's some drinking, and of course they have some craziness happen. Booster Gold basically is just doing his own thing and being the sheriff. This lasts for a couple issues per se, hanging out with Booster Gold. And then And then we see, it looks like not Jonah, some Native American guy just hanging out with some woman who he probably has passed. There's a D there. And Boost himself is shot up. He's like, seriously? Huh? I'm bulletproof. This gold was stolen from honest, hardworking people. Right. Please shoot me again. And of course, then, get your horses. Yep, closer. Yep. So he rides over the gold. They got this little short guy, and then, like, oh, they're basically falling off a cliff, and then they fall through time itself, where must be drunk. It's not bearings. And he goes outside. Oh crap! It's like, what the hell have we done? He's like seeing airplane cars. This is so cool. I love this. And of course, then it basically. Okay, so this book basically has the comic book the main continuity debut of the mutants. Some of you who are not familiar with comics, who are basically casual comic readers, who the heck are the mutants? You think, oh, are those something associated with Marvel Comics? No. This was a neo-punk gang that debuted in Dark Knight Returns. She shoots him out, of course, and guns down. Partner says, calm down, I did a job for you. And then he gets tased. Yes, he gets tased. And it's like, Gotham City, what year? Batman. Name's Batwing Kid. Yep, Luke Fox is here. Yes, which makes him the second present-day character he's met at this point. First was Booster, now it's Batwing. He's not the only one, oh no. He basically fights him for a bit. And then, for some weird reason, they put Jonah Hex in Arkham Asylum. Yes, they put a guy who wears a Confederate uniform. But that's where that story ends, because now we have to go to frickin' 19th Century Stormwatch. Apparently, this is basically the predecessor organization to the ongoing series that was published in Spirit, which I have reviewed, by the way. Yeah, so a lot of this is basically all focused on Dr. T, his little steampunk adventures. And basically it's all about Stormwatch. Yeah, it's basically like the foundation of 19th Century Stormwatch, which the way that this Dr. T is written, it's like, yeah, it's like he's similar to the present-day one, and it's a little bit supernatural here. It's a fun story. This was a little fun fact. This feature here was the final. By the way, let's show the cover here for. By the way, I get this book roughly 9 out of 10. This Stormwatch feature was deemed to be the final backdoor. This was the final backup story for this book, because for the remainder of this run, there was no more backup feature. DC discontinued that at that point, and basically he's in present day, so he gets accounts of the present DC universe. I wonder whose idea this was, basically, bringing Jonah Hex present day. Now, of course, last time we did time traveling was for a sci-fi series called Hex, way up in a post-apocalyptic future where he thought he was still not alive, but turns out he actually did survive long enough to be old. And he was turned into he was. The story goes is that he was shot while playing cards, while still playing up his glasses. And then the guy who shot him had proceeded to taxidermy him. Yes, that's the story behind it. That book is excellent. Next up we have is Ultimate Spider-Man, Volume 17, The Clone Saga. So, basically the story is this. By the way, this book collects issues of Ultimate Spider-Man. Collects, well, it's written by, of course, story by Brian Michael Bendis, art by Mark Bagley. This book collects issues 97-105. Sadly put, this would be Mark Bagley's penultimate story, because with the next story arc, that would be the last time he appears in this book. Yes, I did skip over 6 trades here, but... So, at this point in time, Gwen Stacy's dead. She's also been cloned to become Hobgoblin. So, also, we have Peter talking to Kitty Pryde, which they were briefly dated at this point in time, because what happened the first scene of Ultimate Spider-Man. And then he hooks up back with MJ, and then hijinks ensue, and then we have Spider-Man vs. Scorpion. Except this Scorpion is not Matt Gorgon. Nope, it's basically a clone of Spider-Man. Yep. They bring in Ultimate Scorpion, and they made him a clone. Yep. The reason for this, well, they'll later on exactly what's going on here. So, why did Bendis make Scorpion a clone? I have no idea. So he goes visit the Baxter building, where they do some tests, of course, on the Scorpion. So, of course, MJ disappeared, and then, of course, he runs into this lady, who is actually the 1610 version of Jessica Drew, and she is also a clone of Peter Parker. Yep, it's related. She's actually a clone. Yeah, and then of course, Gwen's alive, and there's this abandoned facility where where MJ got kidnapped by the old version of Kane. Yes, he's got the mark on his face, so obviously it's Ultimate Kane. Yep, there he is, Ultimate Kane. Excuse me. Yep. And of course, there's a lot of experimenting here. Now, you might be thinking, is Miles Warner responsible for this cloning? No. And of course, then Peter tells his aunt he actually is Spider-Man. Prove it. He climbs on walls. Yeah, so... And of course, she's very upset by it. And then we see Richard Parker, who in this universe is also dead too, except he was a scientist, not a spy for the CIA, which later leads into issue 100. Now, how the heck is he here? He's a clone. Yep, he's a clone. And then we see, apparently this one is actually Tarantula. Yep, Thorn Tarantula made him a freaking clone. And the stuff who Mary Parker's here. And by the way, who was responsible for this? And then we see the ultimate debut of Henry Peter Gyrich, who is basically nothing to do with the Avengers in this book. He's actually agent of the FBI. He talks to Peter for a while, who basically just strap all this, of course, done with Venom. And then S.H.I.E.L.D. shows up and then Gwen turns into Carnage. Yep, becomes Carnage because she's a freaking clone. And, it's not him, it's somebody else. Of course, Peter basically, of course, Nick Fury already knows the fact he actually is him. And then we had Fantastic Four show up because, of course, they're worried about Peter. And, of course, they calm down the situation because basically a lot of stuff was a lot of bullcrap. And then, of course, turns back. And then we have where MJ gets infected with the Oz formula and becomes Demo Goblin. Yes, it's identified as Demo Goblin. Yep. Yeah, we're just breezing right through this. So then he's not doing anything wrong. It's all to do with the clones. This is where eventually he finds out about Jessica Drew, who she is. And yeah, so... And then we're introduced to the ultimate version of Madam Web, who would just hear her as Cassandra Webb, which they decided to go with the look she had from the early 2000s when they were younger. Yeah, she's not really big character. It's like, oh yeah, and then of course you have MJ eventually calm down. Oh yeah, and to get this, so it is revealed the person responsible for all this cloning is none other than Dr. Octopus. And you're like, what? Yes, Dr. Octopus is responsible for this. So Kitty Pryde basically that gets the X-Men, and of course Xavier's not exactly buying the story, but Cyclops buys it, and then of course you have, well, you have Susan Richards, well, Susan Storm, actually married Reed Richards in this universe. Yeah, basically May's in trouble, and then yeah, and like doesn't explain what the heck is going on. It's like lots of yelling, and there's also, believe it or not, this layer turns into a dick measuring contest. Yep, between Nick Fury, Dr. Octopus, and Harry Gyrick over this whole situation. Because you just simply feel like I want, like, all about Thor, all this cloning stuff. Yeah, and it's about taking down Pete in the future. And then he builds, apparently, new arms, because I think they were destroyed previously. Yep. Eventually, of course, basically, MJ is supposedly cured, but then she turns Griffin back into Demogoblin. Yeah. And, of course, in Find Dr. Octopus, eventually, of course, apparently, like, they do cure her of the Osprey, which apparently at that point would have no cure. And then Dr. was taken down by both Peter Parker and Jessica Drew. And then apparently Kane died. So then we had the 6-arm thing then. Yeah. And of course, basically, yeah, calm down. The whole thing with MJ, and of course, eventually, yeah, Richard Parker, yeah, he's a clone. Eventually, everything is fine. And it looks like, though, that it's like he had choice to not be Spider-Man anymore. And this kind of, in a way, ends the brief relationship that Peter had with Kitty Pryde. So, because he was back with MJ, of course. Yep. And they just wanted her to forget, nope, we're not going to do that, we're going to leave it alone. Then you have Sharon Carter making one of her last appearances in the Ultimate Universe with this storyline. And Tara Budney, of course, Jessica Drew goes off her own. She later joins the Ultimates. And there's stuff to later on. Of course, Peter goes back to his old house. Yep. And, of course, Peter's back with MJ. And, of course, Kitty sees this and just leaves. And it's going to go with Peter, with MJ. But it looks like Peter is staying with MJ, kind of. But this was really good. Yeah. Typical Bendis stuff, but still a good book overall. I give the book roughly a 9 out of 10. Yep, a lot of good guest stars here. This like it says, star in the Ultimates. Not really. The Ultimates do not play a part in here. You have to trade lie. The X-Men are here. Yes. Spider-Woman? Yes. Fantastic Four? Yes. Nick Fury? Yes. The Ultimates? No. They did not make appearances in the storyline. They're not even mentioned at all. I looked through the whole thing. No Ultimates. But yeah. So that's pretty much a particular view. Please be sure to comment, subscribe, turn notifications. I will see you all later after my stream. Okay? Thanks for you. Bye.